Hello, everyone. A full room. I love it. Makes me happy. Thank you for all for joining us today for the Kroc Border Fellows panel. This is really one of the programs we think is very special here at the Kroc School and the Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice. My name is Andy Blum. I'm the executive director of the Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice here at the Kroc School. And for 3 years, the Institute has been running the Kroc Border Fellows program. At the core of the mission of the Kroc IBJ is to learn with our networks of partners here in San Diego and around the world to create actionable strategies to disrupt cycles of violence. And I think the Border Fellows program is a great illustration of that. Throughout the program, the Border Fellows engage in authentic partnerships in Tijuana and Baja and engage in actionable research, really focused on reducing vulnerability to violence among some of the most at-risk populations and communities in Tijuana and Baja. And that's the common thread that you'll hear about today when you hear about their individual programs focused on women or children or justice impacted youth or recent migrants. Different types of programs that you see in these amazing posters in the room, different types of folks they're working with, all with the idea of reducing violence. And we really think that that serves an important need, fills an important gap. When we were starting the program, we looked around and there's a lot of universities and organizations that are working on migration policy or border policy or environmental issues or bilateral relations. What we didn't see is organizations focused specifically on the violence that unfortunately impacts people every day in our region. And doubly unfortunately is looking to be a bigger problem in the next years to come. And so you're going to learn today about how the Kroc Border Fellows are trying to change that. The program wouldn't be possible without our Cross-Border Initiatives Program Director, Rebecca Cazares, who is a Border Fellow herself. She is part of the first cohort. And then joined the Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice relatively soon after that, and now leads the program. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Rebecca and our Kroc Border Fellows.
Everyone, thank you so much for coming. I'm loving the turnout, and I'm hoping that with everything that has been going on in the past few weeks, we step out of here to maybe just a little bit more hopeful. The work that the Border Fellows are doing is increasingly relevant and poignant right now, and part of the idea of this program is to create a network, and just how important binational work is right now is part of the reason that we're here, and we'd like to highlight and have folks here share ideas and know about each other's work and how we can best collaborate. So with that, I'd like to introduce our fellows, our 2024 fellows. Chantal Lucero is a professor and researcher at the University of Baja California Science Research Institute. She holds a PhD in social sciences with a specialization in regional studies from COLEP. She also holds a law degree from the University of Baja California, Mexico, and her work focuses on human rights, international migration, and unaccompanied minors. Her extensive research on unaccompanied minors informed her work that she has done during the Border Fellows program, where she's providing training regarding migrant children protection guidelines based on international protocols to shelters and other institutions in Tijuana and Mexicali that house and provide services for unaccompanied migrant children. She will also be conducting an evaluation and needs assessment with the participants of these trainings, and will provide guidance tailored to each specific site and needs depending on their available resources. Isa Tuxpan Mian over there is the Community and Cultural Coordinator for Tijuana Innovadora. Casa de las Ideas, which is a Tijuana-based NGO. She has a degree in communication from the Autonomous University of Baja California. She has extensive experience in broadcasting, journalism, managing art festivals, and conducting digital technology learning courses in her community. So Isa, as part of this community and with her knowledge and expertise, have developed and implemented learning courses for women into community centers in Camino Verde, which is a neighborhood in Tijuana with consistently high rates of violence, especially gender-based violence. The course is based on the needs of women in these communities whom Isa works with closely. They consist of basic computer and digital technology tools to help them acquire needed skills and build confidence to apply and access better jobs, work in business, and continue their education. Salvador Cruz, who's joining us today online, has a BA in psychology from Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana, a master's in social psychology from UNAM, and a PhD in social sciences from Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana. He's a professor in the Department of Cultural Studies at COLEF, and his research focuses on gender, masculinity, youth, and social violence. Salvador's project aims to identify risk factors in socially vulnerable and justice-impaired young men by linking youth and the construction of masculinity as cultural frameworks associated with the risk of being both victims and perpetrators of violence in the Tijuana-San Diego region. Our fellow Andrea Gonzalez also joining us, I think, all the way from Chile today. She has a bachelor's degree in social work from the Universidad Católica de Valparaíso, Chile, a master's in gender studies from el Colegio de México. She specializes in communities and territories from Pontificia Universidad Católica Valparaíso is her degree, and cultural studies from Colegio de la Frontera Norte in Tijuana. She's was the director of operations in Albergue Arcoiris and a consultant for the co-construction process for the regional agenda for the search of missing persons in the United Nations Populations Fund for population activities, and a professor for the School of Communication at the Ibero-American University. Her project is called Harbor Diversity, which focuses on development of community gardens as actions that allow the promotion of food security while considering the economic and social changes that many shelters face in accessing healthy and nutritious food. It is meant to be an inclusive and supportive training initiative to strengthen the community's relationship with the ecosystem and the environments. These trainings establish bridges for coexistence and represent the possibility of building a space conducive to education about diversity and respect within the community. Our fellow Lisa Paredes, who's present here, is a research coordinator at Espacio Migrante, a Tijuana-based NGO. She has a law degree from the Universidad Autónoma Baja California, especially in international human rights law from Madrid University, and especially in legal English from California Western School of Law. Her project is called the Migrant Parliament. She created the Migrant Parliament in 2023. Which is an initiative that aims to promote the direct participation of migrants in coordination and decision-making spaces for the transformation of public policies. The Parliament holds a session in the Baja California Congress with migrant leaders in 4 different languages, including Creole, French, English, and Spanish. 3 major legislative initiatives have been presented, and these were focused on migrant education, discrimination and racism, and language justice. The current project is a continuation of the Migrant Parliament, and it focuses on eliminating obstetric violence. And finally, I'm sorry, I'm missing Judy, who's also meeting us here online. Judy is from Tijuana. She's an activist, a psychologist. She has been working with vulnerable populations and marginalized populations in Tijuana for a very long time. Her shelter focuses on helping women and children in Tijuana. It's called Borderline Crisis. She's a warrior. She does everything. I know that she's been super busy, especially right now. So I'm really thankful that she could make it today. And her work for this year focuses on self and community care, providing safe spaces for activists and people, which also include migrants who are working with her, on how to take care of themselves and their communities while doing this type of work. Part of the reason is the increasing burnout and the increasing need she sees in the community for people who are helping others to also be able to maintain healthy mindset and not have everything that's been going on drag them down. So she champions everyone else who's doing this work so that they can keep doing it as well. That's our board 2024 Border Fellows group, and I'd like to start with a couple of questions to get us started, and then I'll open up for questions from the audience. So my first question is for Andrea, Lisette, Judy, and Judy that are working directly with migrant populations. They specifically also work with people who are from other groups that are more subject or more vulnerable to violence. In the case of Andrea, she also works with the LGBTQ community. Lisette works closely also with Haitian immigrants, and Judy with women and children, and a lot with single mothers. So I'd like to ask them, what is something that you would like to share today, or something that is not as commonly known about the intersection of migration, the LGBTQ+ community, Haitian population in Tijuana, and the gendered experience of migration or motherhood and migration in your work in Tijuana? And what are you preparing for, or how are you preparing for during the next few years, or for what's coming? So I'm gonna translate as I go. La pregunta para Andrea, Lisette y Judy, que están trabajando más directamente con población migrante, sobre todo en el clima actual, es ¿qué es algo que les gustaría compartir acerca de su trabajo, que tal vez no sea algo muy obvio o comúnmente conocido, acerca de la intersección de trabajar en un contexto de migración con poblaciones, en este caso, por ejemplo, Andrea, migración con comunidad LGBTQ+, en el caso de Lisette con comunidad haitiana, en el caso de Judith con mujeres y madres migrantes? Yo sé que las tres trabajan con todas estas poblaciones también. Si hay algo que nos puedan compartir acerca de su experiencia con esta intersección y cómo se están preparando en el clima actual. ¿Gusta empezar, Judith?
First, hi everybody, and I can't see all of you, but thank you for the space. Regarding women in migration, well, in Borderline Crisis Center, we work from a feminist intersectional approach. So gender, race are very present in our work. When we think about how we want this organization to run, what kind of services we want to provide, and what are the specific needs of women, children. But okay, so whatever you identify as a gender bias, or muchachas, ¿me esperan tantito con el ruido? Sorry, I'm in the shelter. It will happen within the migrant community as well, you know, and discrimination, all of this. So they are more exposed to sexual violence. And I'm sorry, give me a minute. Sorry, thank you. So for the next year, what we've been thinking and what we've been talking about a lot, or the next 4 years, I guess, is articulating different actors in different sectors, because if we've been focusing on women and that's our expertise at the moment, but we can see how what's coming is going to get to us all. So from our expertise and still protecting the particular needs or trying to meet the particular needs of women and children in migration. That's what we're thinking of for the next administration. You know, we have to go beyond like our comfort zone and work with men, straight, maybe white old men, I don't know, but we definitely need to figure out what's our common ground and fortify our alliances, I think.
Gracias, Susi. Andrea, ¿gustas continuar?
Hola, bueno, en el caso nuestro, Casa Arcoíris ha sufrido un impacto más o menos como desde el año pasado también en términos de los recursos para su existencia. De hecho, yo actualmente ya no trabajo como directora operativa y el proyecto ha tenido que mutar de ser un albergue a convertirse en un espacio comunitario. ¿Por qué digo este tema de los recursos, no? Porque eso evidentemente impacta de manera directa la posibilidad que tiene la comunidad LGBTIQ+, de vivir en un albergue seguro y pues que respete sus identidades, orientaciones y pues todas las diversidades que conviven en el espacio, ¿no? Eso
Andrea,
creo.
voy a ir diciendo, perdón, en lo que voy a ir diciendo por partes en lo, para no perderme nada. Sorry, I'm just gonna translate as you go. So Andrea's talking about the impact that resources have had in the since last year. She in fact has stopped working as director in the shelter because of financial issues that they've experienced since last year. And how much this has impacted this community in particular is something to highlight at the time. Continúo.
Sí, gracias. Y en segundo lugar, pues comentarles también que la ciudad de Tijuana no es una ciudad segura para nuestra comunidad. No es un espacio que ofrezca garantías para que las personas se puedan quedar ahí esperando cualquier resolución de su situación, sobre todo en este momento. Hay unos datos muy importantes, sobre todo la información que ha estado levantando la organización al otro lado, que indican que pues, del 100% de personas LGBT que han entrevistado, una cuarta parte ha denunciado haber sido víctima de abusos policiales, por ejemplo. Y eso demarca una situación de violencia institucional en contra de nuestra comunidad, que pues nos da, digamos, como un poco la sensación, ¿no?, que tenemos como comunidad frente a la inseguridad, cuando pues justamente los cuerpos que deberían proveernos de la sensación de seguridad en realidad para nosotras son todo lo contrario, ¿no? Creo que eso también es algo que tenemos que poner en nuestro análisis, porque eso tiene que ver con lo tercero que voy a decir, pero bueno, quizás ahora toca la traducción.
Gracias. So Andrea also speaks about how Tijuana has not been a safe place for the LGBTQ community. They're a legal organization, binational organization called Al Otro Lado. Many of you have possibly heard of it. Recently published some of their findings where 100% of the people that they have interviewed from the LGBT community, 4 of them have denounced abuses by police or other public institutions, which has just increased the sense of insecurity for both migrants and the LGBTQ community in general. So recently, just the sense of lack of security and the fact that they've lost the shelter recently just has increased the stress level and overall sense of safety in the city. ¿Algo para terminar, Andrea?
Sí, que bueno, tiene que ver con las posibilidades, ¿no?, de acción y de tener cierta imaginación política frente a esta crisis. Creo que lo principal en este escenario es pues generar alianzas. Hace falta también levantar muchísima información específica de la situación de nuestra comunidad, pero información que estemos levantando nosotras mismas como activistas, ¿no? La mirada que podemos tener desde nuestras propias organizaciones, desde nuestro propio saber como activistas, en este momento es muy valioso para poder levantar también un discurso que permita cambiar algunas narrativas, ¿no?, que están permeando la comunicación pública sobre el fenómeno. Nosotras no compartimos el análisis, digamos, ¿no?, que se está haciendo de la situación, porque para nosotras esto es un problema muchísimo más grande, digamos, ¿no? El problema de las olas migratorias y las deportaciones tiene que ver con un problema estructural que es consecuencia de políticas y de desigualdades que se arrastran desde hace mucho tiempo y no solamente de la acción de Estados Unidos hacia México o hacia otros países. Entonces, creo que en ese sentido hace falta levantar esa información para, insisto, producir otro tipo de narrativa frente al problema y frente al análisis también del problema que estamos viviendo, ¿no? Y pues en tercer lugar, importante también, como desde el trabajo que hacemos desde Cosecha Diversidad, tiene que ver con generar también estas alianzas entre organizaciones, entre albergues, para seguir generando la posibilidad de que estos espacios sigan existiendo, ¿no?, como lugares seguros para nuestra comunidad.
And so Andrea points out how important it is right now to create alliances, specifically in this case, she's talking about collecting data and collecting their own data, being able to have their own stories heard and partner with people who can also help them change the narrative, especially the narrative that goes around currently surrounding migration. So she would like to see more organizations and more actors that can contribute to that, to people that are working on the ground being able to gather information and collect their own data and help change those narratives. Por último, Lisa, brevemente quieres.
Yeah. I work in Espacio Migrante. It's a shelter for families, and we provide legal aid. And at the same time, we have a community center. Our shelter is for families, especially with with children. And the things that we see since the new administration arrived is the people who stay just in the middle. Some people have the CBP1 appointment just for like 21 of January and recently get canceled. And these people stay like inside Tijuana without papers in Mexico, and at the same time they cannot continue their journey to United States, where most of the people have families here in United States, and they cannot return to their country. And we focus more on children because they don't have the papers for get enrolled in the school. And at the same time, medical service is not good enough for migrants, especially if you don't have the papers, and the public health is very, very expensive. One of our project is the recognition of midwives, because there are midwives that they provide service to migrants, but at the same time, it's a difficult issue because the midwives, they are not recognized by the government, Mexican government. So when a woman migrant have their children with midwife, they don't have papers, and the people are migrants. So it's a difficult issue. We are working on that, in the recognition of midwife. And one thing I want to say about what is happening right now with this new administration is I saw a lot of information about what is happening with the people who are opportunity deportation and everything, but what is happening with the people who get in the middle of the border. And they also have dreams. They also they want to cross the United States legally by asylum, and then now they plans are there have to change. And well, we work a lot with children, and it's difficult to the children understand that they are with not a school, there are to like in nothing, I guess. And at the same time, people who live here since they are a child, they have to come back to Mexico, arriving, and this is, they don't know nothing. And we want to collaborate more with U.S. governments for these people who get, I don't know, in the middle of the border. And at the same time, we don't have information right now for what is happening, for what is going to happen with the asylum seekers, where is the new legal ways to get to asylum in the United States. And we are in a crisis because the shelters are already full with the population who staying waiting the CBP1 appointment, and at the same time we have more people arriving by the deportation. So that's it.
In the interest of time, I want to leave it open for questions from the audience. And lastly, if we have time, I'd also like to ask our fellows to share what are some of the ways to get involved, to reach out, collaborate, donate, etc. Especially given that they know specific needs at the border and what they can share with us about how to get involved for anyone who is interested in the topic. But to get us started, I'd like to see if there's anyone in the audience who would question.
Would it be fair to say that Mexico isn't really doing its job when it comes to crime? A number of years ago, when President Obrador became president, he stopped a relationship between America's FBI that was helping identify criminal elements in operating in Mexico. In addition, I think even the CIA was also, and it can operate outside the United States, was doing the same thing to help Mexico identify the criminal elements. And he stopped that. It was his famous hugs and no bullets. I personally think this is a failure of the Mexican government, the violence. Since 2000, was reported in the New York Times, over 400,000 Mexicans have been murdered. Over 100,000 are missing. You gotta figure they're probably not with us either. So turning to the United States, I think it's misplaced. Your thoughts?
Well, I have my own thoughts and if we have to, we'll get there, but I'm going to translate the questions and see if one of our fellows would like to participate. Bueno, nuestro ponente de hoy, en su opinión, considera que esto es en gran parte un fallo en la política de seguridad por parte de México, en específico en el lado del presidente López Obrador, que cesó algunos esfuerzos de cooperación con Estados Unidos durante su administración y su política de abrazos no balazos, y lo ve principalmente como un fallo en este tipo de esfuerzos, sí, y política por el lado de México, lo que está pasando actualmente. Entonces, no sé si alguien guste colaborar con alguna respuesta. Judy.
So if I understood, what you're saying is that the current political climate and migration comes from a failure of the Mexican government
This is criminality.
La criminalidad.
La criminalidad. Well, that's been rising since we got in cahoots with the United States government for the war against drugs in the Calderon era. So ever since then, the narco problem has been rising. But other than that, what's going on is that United States, particularly Trump followers and everybody who thinks like that, are treating migration as a security problem, a national security problem, as if you're being invaded, as if every migrant is a criminal. And that's just a very stigmatizing narrative. You are not being invaded. Most of the people who are looking for asylum are neither narcos or rapists or murderers. And they're actually some of the most vulnerable people you will ever get to meet. The real problem with drugs, etc., is the cartels. These are huge organizations of very powerful people who work with the government in both countries. So the real criminals that you're looking for are not trying to cross the desert or jump a wall. They're in your government offices, they're wearing white collars, and there's a lot to say about corruption in CBP and how CBP agents allow for human traffickers and drug dealers to cross all of this to the United States. And there's also much to say about how the United States provides the cartels with weapons. So I think it's way more complex than just Mexico failing to shut the narcos and trying to give them hugs. That was a very dumb move on AMLO. I'll give you that. But this is pure demagogia. ¿Cómo se escribe? Demagogy, ¿cómo se dice? Demagogy. Yeah. And yeah. And it's distracting you from the real problems of security that your country has and your real economic problems. I mean, if this guy really gave a hoot about his citizens, he would provide you with universal health care or something, you know, securing the border from asylum seekers. That's just, I don't know how he got people to believe that.
Sorry.
¿En español o en inglés? I think it's very important to differentiate the fact that most of the asylum seekers are not coming from Mexico. Most of the asylum seekers are actually coming from Central America, if I'm correct. Is that correct? And I think there's a lot of confusion with the United States and the understanding that people on the border are not all Mexican people. They are actually coming from all the other countries where they're facing problems. So I just wanted to clarify.
I wanted to ask a question about Milena. I'm curious more about your work and if you could share a little bit more about it and kind of what the findings, because it was seemed really interesting. So I don't know if we heard the backstory to that, so I'm just curious.
Milena, si puedes hablar un poco acerca de tu trabajo y de dónde viene la.
Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, yo soy colombiana, llevo un par de años en Tijuana. Soy profesora de CETES Universidad y hago, pues, especializado, me gusta el trabajo de campo en contextos de violencia. Y un poco el proyecto está relacionado con resiliencia social y comunitaria y a la par resiliencia económica en contextos de vulnerabilidad, en específico en territorios donde el cobro de piso es uno de los delitos más apremiantes. Y el proyecto ha permitido que esta forma de entender la capacitación como una forma de empoderamiento pueda no solo en estas colonias, sino en otros espacios como centros de reclusión, en Nogales y actualmente en Baja California.
So Milena's from Colombia and she has been in Tijuana for 2 years now. And she's very passionate about field work and research. So she started doing this work and concentrating on social resilience and economic resilience she's an economist as well, so taking this and applying it in vulnerable contexts or people who are living in vulnerable contexts. Right now, she's doing it in her project in the eastern part of Tijuana, similar to ISA, where there are high levels of violence, especially violence against women. And next, she's taking this the same project to penitentiaries and for women who have been incarcerated. Yes.
Primero que nada, les quería dar las gracias por pues, el trabajo que hacen, muy valioso, y también por tomarse el tiempo de estar aquí con nosotras. Mi pregunta es para Salvador. Quería saber si podrías hablar un poco más del trabajo que haces, porque se me hace muy interesante el enfoque, especialmente en los jóvenes, pero también en el género masculino y el rol que ellos tienen en lo de la violencia y también un poco de... Sí, pues hablar un poco de eso.
I'll translate both question and answer. Adelante, Salvador.
Bueno, primero quiero agradecer a la universidad y a la fundación por la distinción que me han hecho y que ha servido para conocer el trabajo que los centros de detención, de internamiento de adolescentes y jóvenes tienen respecto a esta población, porque cada vez los jóvenes consumen drogas a menor edad y algunos incurren en delitos de alto impacto, crímenes de alto impacto. Y este trabajo resulta fundamental para pensar de cómo podemos ir disminuyendo la violencia en la frontera.
So his work focuses on youth, especially young men, and how they may get involved. I'm sorry, the other question to begin with is about Salvador and his work, and how it came to be that relationship between violence and masculinity. So Salvador is talking about how his work focuses on young men and finding out how they may get involved in criminal activity as a way to find solutions that look at some of the root causes of violence in this community.
Esta forma de trabajo que he tenido es con base en comprender mejor la condición de ser joven en México y la condición de género masculino, es decir, cómo se construye la categoría hombre joven en estas poblaciones que viven en contextos de alta violencia, en donde también pertenecen a familias que están, algunas de ellas, pues también involucrados en el crimen, o que estas formas de socialidad juvenil fomentan en algunos, no en todos, en algunos jóvenes, en que lleguen también a incurrir en violencia. Por eso es fundamental trabajar la condición de género masculino y entender también cómo se construye esto en niños y adolescentes.
So what Salvador is trying to do with his work is to try to understand how the category of being a man or a young man in Mexico is constructed, how masculinity as a young man in Mexico is being constructed, especially for men who live in contexts of chronic violence or who are part of families that are involved in crime.
Bueno, y el trabajo consiste particularmente en dar talleres con personal que atiende a esta población juvenil y he participado también en talleres con jóvenes, 3 talleres, un taller en la ciudad de Tijuana, otro en la ciudad de Mexicali y otro en Ensenada, trabajando particularmente con los adolescentes y un equipo de talleristas en donde abordamos esas temáticas a partir del cuerpo y movimiento y resignificar a partir del cuerpo masculino, de la memoria de este cuerpo, esta condición justamente del ser hombres, del ser varones. y ojalá que esto permita que reflexionen sobre el ser hombre, el ser varón, pues no necesariamente tiene que estar ligado a la violencia, desmotivar, digamos, la práctica masculina como prácticas también de violencia.
So through this research and through the way that this concept is constructed, he takes it and turns this knowledge into action through workshops and through other trainings for these young men to try to re-signify what it means to be a man in Mexico and a young man in Mexico, through the body, through movement, and through other ways of expression, to change that, what it could be to be a man in Mexico, and having that constant need to prove masculinity is something common in Mexico and Mexican men. So this is part of the work, and this, I understand, also is to design workshops for people who are involved with many different civil society organizations or public servants that come into contact with young men who've been in trouble with the law.
Oh, sorry.
You want this question?
We were just reviewing that Andrea is involved in the community garden project.
Yes.
And personally, I'm involved with the community garden in Linda Vista Park. So I'd like to know more about that positive impact that she's having.
Yeah. Andrea, una pregunta acerca de tu proyecto y la cosecha. Alguno de las, ahora sí que de los puntos positivos, cosas que has aprendido con el proyecto.
Sí, mira, lo principal del aprendizaje de este proyecto es que viene como a plantear que es posible realizar huertas comunitarias en albergues. Eso creo que ha sido como la principal reflexión del equipo, porque pues Cosecha Diversidad somos un equipo de 3 personas que estamos trabajando en esto, y a través de la experiencia, ¿no?, con el proyecto este año, hemos ido construyendo una metodología a partir de las dificultades que se nos presentaron anteriormente para poder hacer huertas comunitarias en albergues. Entonces, creo que lo más positivo de esta experiencia es haber construido, insisto, una metodología desde la dificultad, desde las imposibilidades que a veces se ven en estos espacios, para poder abordarlas como algo que sí sea materializable, ¿no? Eso por una parte. Lo segundo, yo te diría que es un poco el trabajo también que implica a nivel comunitario, ¿no? La posibilidad que existe de generar redes entre espacios, pero también que estas redes signifiquen la posibilidad de desarrollar la inclusión como práctica social, no como discurso o como valor, sino más bien ponerlo en práctica a través de estos espacios de encuentro.
So the main takeaway or most positive thing is that it's possible to do it. It was there are many challenges to do any sort of sustainable project in shelters in Tijuana. The population moves constantly, the resources are low, and the team's also only 3 people doing these gardens in different shelters. So they've been doing it for a while now. It seems to be working, but the methodology they're using is pretty much based on all the difficulties that they face and they've had, and to adapt that to the context and the shelters that they're working with. So that leads her to what it means for the team and for the people that they're working with to do to work in inclusion as a social practice. To have this work be at a community level and create that network and create inclusion as a social practice. So this project is not only about sustainability and food and creating a garden, but also creating a space to facilitate conversations about diversity. without having it be a lecture or a class but just something that the community does together. We produce something and it yields several different results.
So thank you all for being here. I'm curious to hear mostly from Chantal and Isa about their projects and mostly their results, because I know that both of you work, Chantal, on institutional violence, implementing that and giving workshops for that, and Isa giving workshops for digital media for women. So I want to hear from you two how you've seen the results in your point of view. They have been positive so far. Lo puedo decir también en español si quieres. Bueno, más que nada me interesa escuchar de cómo se han visto los resultados debido a los talleres que han estado haciendo, tanto Chantal con la prevención de la violencia institucional y Isa con el enseñarles los medios digitales a mujeres.
Bueno, gracias. Sí, pues, bueno, fue como un proyecto de 3 meses que se estuvo dando un seguimiento con las mujeres desde lanzar, bueno, todavía más, lanzar la convocatoria, buscarlas, elegirlas, porque mi público eran mujeres, amas de casa, con educación trunca que llegaron a estudiar secundaria. Entonces, mujeres que por el hecho de ser madres tuvieron que dejar la escuela y enseñarles a ellas el simple hecho de usar una computadora con el terror que tenían. Aprendieron a usar la computadora con todos los elementos que son sin conexión a internet, que para nosotros es básico. Para ellas era un mundo completamente diferente. De ahí pasamos a herramientas digitales como con los correos electrónicos, hasta hacer presentaciones de PowerPoint, que eso para ellas era muy importante porque les permitía comunicarse con sus hijos a la hora de poder hacer las tareas, porque decían que no puedo ayudar al niño a hacer su tarea porque yo no sé cómo hacerlo. Entonces, y ellas ya pueden guiarlos con sus tareas. Y pues fue como todo un irlas acompañando en este proceso y pasar al último módulo, a la última parte que era ya redes sociales, ya que aprendieron todo lo básico, ya podían ellas usar unas redes sociales de manera responsable, también sabiendo los riesgos que existen en Internet para que ellas sepan cómo actuar en Internet. Y muchas de estas mujeres tenían pequeños emprendimientos, porque muchas de ellas no pueden trabajar, dependen del salario de algunas del marido, algunas son solteras. Entonces, les permitía a ellas pues vender, una que hacía bordados, vender bordados, otra empezó a vender botanas, entonces ya podía anunciarse en internet. Y tuve un caso de una señora que ella rentó una casa por internet, entonces trabaja en bienes raíces, entonces se ven yo he visto los resultados pues más directamente y pues la comunicación sigue con ellas porque cualquier duda que tienen pues la seguimos asesorando y todo, entonces fue como gradual.
Well, the group and the women that Isa concentrated on or focused on this time were women from different ages that were mostly mothers and that had to leave their education for different reasons, but a lot of them because they became mothers and time had passed and they were absolutely terrified of using a computer, and nowadays it was too difficult to help their kids do their homework or to have any to continue education, or even some of them have had little businesses and getting that going without the use of technology was very difficult. So she had different modules that catered specifically to these needs for these group of women. So from beginning to how to work a computer, turn it on, all the basic stuff, to being able to help their children with their homework, and then finally how to use social media so that they could advance their small businesses. So she had women who were knitting and selling what they were making, some of them selling snacks. She says even one of them was able to sell a house because she learned how to use these tools and is now thinking about real estate. So the idea is to take small groups of women, their specific needs, and tailor this sort of training to those needs.
Ok, gracias Rebeca por la pregunta. Bueno, yo lo que me interesa este tema porque mi trabajo es ir a los albergues desde la frontera sur de México hasta la frontera norte y albergues que atienden niñas migrantes no acompañadas. Y lo que me di cuenta es que el gobierno es asistencialista, les da de comer, les da donde dormir, pero no atiende otras necesidades. Y lo que hicimos con los talleres, fuimos a los talleres, y albergues del DIF y albergues de la sociedad civil, y nos dimos cuenta que la población que contratan para cuidar a los niños no tienen una capacitación. O sea, decían, ¿cómo llegaron aquí al DIF? Y decían, yo antes era peluquera y alguien me dijo que si quería trabajar con niños y acepté. Entonces, es muy noble, pero no saben cómo tratar a los niños, más con niños con necesidades especiales o niños LGBT. Entonces, lo que hicimos es sensibilizarlos, que entendieran que estos niños vienen de contextos muy violentos, tanto de sus países de origen como en el tránsito migratorio. Y al llegar a la frontera norte principalmente es donde necesitan un lugar seguro y no lo tienen. Ellos pensaban que no te golpeo, no te grito, entonces no ejerció violencia, pero ejercían otro tipo de violencia, como los ignoraban completamente, no los dejaban desarrollarse si eran niños LGBT, les ponían apodos feos, ¿no? Porque no estaban como sensibilizados. Entonces, estos talleres nos abrieron esta puerta para ver las problemáticas y ellos mismos nos pidieron que en un año regresáramos para valorar cómo le había llevado el taller y si todavía seguían estos problemas, volverles a dar estos talleres. Entonces, para nosotros sí fue muy gratificante.
So Chantal's work as a researcher, working with unaccompanied minors, has taken her through many shelters from the southern border to the northern border. And one of the things that she found out through her research is that the Mexican government does provide assistance and basic needs in a lot of these shelters. There's absolutely no training being provided for the people that are providing these services. So she's saying that as an anecdote, sometimes she will interview some of the people working at the shelter, and they used to cut hair, or they have very good intentions, but absolutely no experience or training when it comes to taking care of children, much less children who are migrant or have gone through these experiences. So they figured out how. So they're trying to figure out what is the best way to deliver training for the people working at these shelters. There seems to be no safe space, especially for children who have special needs, children from the LGBTQ community. There seems to be a sense that because they're not hitting children or yelling at them, they're not being violent, but other types of violence are being they're experiencing other types of violence. So as we keep saying, resources are low and they tend to be allocated to food, shelter, and the basic stuff. But the increased need means that there's just not enough people to meet these needs, to get trained, and so she's through her research, she's trying to fill that void. Any questions? Okay. Well, we have just one more minute, so I'd like to have the fellows answer that one last question. From their work and from everything that's been going on in the past few weeks, the way that they've been experiencing these changes, what are the most pressing needs that they're seeing in their communities, and how can people who are interested in this work get involved? Entonces, en su trabajo, en su experiencia con lo que están viendo actualmente en la frontera, ya sea que trabajen con migrantes o no, de cualquier modo ha habido un impacto. de qué, cuáles son las necesidades más urgentes que han visto en su trabajo y de qué modo recomiendan que personas que estén interesadas en apoyar o en involucrarse puedan hacerlo.
Bueno, por ejemplo, bueno, los que hacemos investigación, en México hay muy poco apoyo o casi nulo para la investigación. Muchas veces nosotros tenemos que poner de nuestra bolsa para hacer estos trabajos. Entonces, el apoyo que en este caso nos brinda la Universidad de San Diego es súper valioso porque con eso, aunque para ustedes puede ser poquito, para nosotros es bastante. Entonces, con eso podemos ayudar más a las comunidades.
Shantai is saying that in her case as a researcher, there's very little support and funds for research in Mexico. So programs like this go a long way in helping her advance her research. And even though it might seem like a small amount of money, it does make a big difference for her so that she can carry out her work. And not only is she generating data, but turning that into action. A lot of times that comes out of her own purse.
Bueno, de mi parte, el cobro de piso es un delito que se vive en silencio generalmente y el contexto de reclusión se vive en soledad. Entonces creo que estas dos circunstancias podrían ser, no sé si cambiar, la palabra quizás muy compleja y muy idílica, pero el hecho de hacer acompañamientos a largo plazo, de que no sean acciones en un tiempo corto y específico, sino que se puedan generar acompañamientos a largo plazo con las personas que inicialmente tenemos intervenciones. Entonces, si en ese punto hay formas de cómo generar esos acompañamientos con una persona que tiene una condena de X cantidad de años hasta el momento en que sale del centro de reclusión, o la persona que está emprendiendo y que por muchas circunstancias, por necesidad, sigue en este mismo contexto de emprendimiento hasta el momento en que su forma de ingresos se consolida en el tiempo. Con las personas que han estado conociendo esas situaciones, creo que sería una forma complementaria de la forma económica. El generar iniciativas que acompañen en el largo plazo a las personas que eventualmente hacen parte de una intervención.
So in the case of Yana, she has these two different, very big issues to tackle. On the one hand, there's the issue of extortion for people, in her case, women entrepreneurs in Tijuana, and the other case, women who are incarcerated. One of them is pretty much lived in silence. There's a lot of risk on denouncing this type of crime. So on the one hand, it's tackling that, and on the other is the isolation and solitude of living in incarceration. So her idea is through these types of initiatives and supporting any type of initiative that can travel these journeys with the women who are being either extorted or living in this type of violence, or women who are being incarcerated and looking for small interventions throughout this journey. So supporting those types of initiatives and looking for those small interventions, since the bigger picture or the context of where that violence comes from feels big and overwhelming. The idea from her side is to look for those small spaces of intervention and not letting that go through the journey.
And as my colleague says, we need donations. Most of our work is for long solutions, so we are trying to get more donations. In my case, I work with change migrants policy in Baja California, and it's a long journey. And at the same time, the mental health in the shelter is not very good for the crisis. So maybe if you can do some workshops with the families, that will be great for forget the real situation. And actually, we are working more. We are working to have more workshops for the families because the mental health is not very good right now for the situation. But yeah, that is, if you want to get involved, and that is one thing that you can do.
Ok, bueno, a pesar de todo el avance tecnológico que hay, ya estamos en la IA, no sé qué número va de la IA, los avances, los cambios de teléfono, computadora. La brecha digital sigue siendo muy amplia, especialmente en el grupo de mujeres. De la edad de, bueno, mi grupo fue de 20 a 60 años, pero las mujeres con pocos estudios, ellas sufren violencia totalmente al ser ignoradas. Entonces, este programa ayudó mucho a incluirlas a esta sociedad digitalizada, reducir violencias económicas. Entonces, creo que es muy importante pues continuar con estos apoyos, ver a este grupo de mujeres, verlas y también ser conscientes que nosotros podemos hacer el cambio desde el círculo más cercano cuando nos preguntan cómo usar un teléfono, cómo enviar un correo. Entonces, yo en este ciclo voy a continuar en marzo el segundo taller de medios digitales para mujeres y pues estamos también buscando apoyos para ahora regalar computadoras. Entonces las chicas que se inscriban al curso, que lo terminen, vayan aprendiendo a utilizar las herramientas y al final la intención es regalarles una laptop para que ellas puedan pues seguir generando su propio trabajo. Entonces, pues muchas gracias por el apoyo y pues pienso que el cambio lo podemos seguir haciendo desde nuestros pequeños círculos. Y claro, programas como estos ayudan a hacer pues el cambio todavía llegar a más personas. Gracias.
Isa tells her the group of women that she's has been working with range from 20 to 60 years old, and inevitably low educational levels go hand in hand with high rates of violence or higher risk of violence. So she highlights the need to use every available tool there is to help them escape that violence or help them make them a little bit less vulnerable to them. And that includes in this case, helping them use these digital tools, increasing access to them. And one of the things in her wish list is to provide computers or provide laptops to the women who are participating in these workshops. And she says we can make a big difference even within our own small communities by listening to these needs. If someone asks, how can I send an email on my phone or do any small tasks that seems like it might be a little bit obvious to us, it's not for many women in this context, of helping them do that is can be a lot of help. So and just overall the work that she was able to do with the fellowship is also advancing this objective in her community.
There's an organization in San Diego called Computers for Kids. And basically anybody who donates computers, they will refurbish them and then send them out. So it might be worth asking if they would be willing to support our Tijuana. But they're a wonderful organization.
Computers for Kids.
It's called Computers for Kids. So they take basically, when people, anything that we donate, and we actually furnished one of the some of the community centers in San Diego with printers and things like that during the pandemic. So there might be a resource.
That'd be great.
Gracias.
Una organización en San Diego que igual buscamos para que ayudan a reparar computadoras, les van a computadoras, les ayudan a repararlas y a lo mejor poder hacer un recurso.
Lo voy a buscar. Gracias. Gracias.
One last, anyone?
Okay, I thought we were gonna close there. I'm gonna second most of what my colleagues mentioned. Definitely, there's gonna be, we already know budget cuts to USAID. we're not even sure how this is gonna impact us eventually, all the ONGs and different international agencies that are gonna be affected by this. So definitely donations will be needed. You can also volunteer, you can do, donate your time. You can do in-kind donations. You can support fundraising campaigns, and you can offer collaborations with different aspects of the organizations. I would recommend you get close to the organizations that you like, learn about them, get to know them, and support them in the long run. Like find the places where you feel in confidence to do that, and also challenge that stigmatizing and criminalizing narrative every time you hear it. Don't let people get away with saying that all migrants are criminals, or that they represent a social charge. Get informed, and don't allow for these environments where discrimination is socially accepted. That's it.
Yeah. Andrea, ¿lo que
Sí, bueno, me sumo a todo lo que acaban de comentar, pues sobre todo lo que enfatizaba Judith, ¿no? Y creo que pues también hace falta pensar pues como en dos frentes, ¿no? Hay cuestiones urgentes de trabajar, porque pues son necesidades urgentes, pero por otro lado hay cuestiones que requieren de un trabajo que no es asistencialista, sino más bien tiene que ver con cómo somos capaces como sociedad de generar nuevas lógicas de una política migratoria que esté pensando de cara a las personas y no a la securitización de las fronteras. Creo que si logramos hacer ese cambio de enfoque, tenemos una herramienta muy poderosa como organizaciones de la sociedad civil que estamos en esto, activistas, etcétera, ¿no? Eso.
And it highlights the need not only to provide assistance, but also to change narratives, to change the way that the in general migration phenomenon and all of these harmful and violent facilitating narratives are being perpetrated, and how activist people who are working in these organizations can also make some space to not only provide services or assistance, but also help change that narrative and that mindset.
El flujo migratorio no va a parar. La amenaza de alta deportación supondría un escenario mucho más violento en la frontera, un incremento en la criminalidad, por lo que es muy importante abrir espacios donde se trabajen aspectos de contención, aspectos de reflexión sobre la construcción de género, que se vean los costos que tiene el participar o el realizar actos criminales o prácticas de violencia, costos en la vida de estos jóvenes, en las familias de ellos y en la comunidad en general. Se pueden abrir espacios en escuelas, en centros comunitarios, en albergues para migrantes, donde se puedan trabajar estos aspectos fundamentales ahora. Gracias.
And Salvador calls to open up more spaces to discuss what are some of what's the impact of what we're seeing now, and how halting the human need to move and to stay safe and these migration efforts itself creates or facilitates more violence and criminality. So having more space to talk about what are the side effects of that and the direct consequences as well is important, and also to have a gendered lens whenever we talk about these issues. Okay, so we are over time, but I did, there's just so much to say. We have some time to chat with our fellows as well in the reception. I want to thank you so much for coming, for filling up the room, for your comments and your questions, even the difficult ones. Thank you so much. And we can keep the conversation going in the reception.